Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to work with arrays and objects in JavaScript. Let's start with objects. Now, objects in JavaScript are used to present a thing in your code. Objects in JavaScript normally have properties which are as we are going to see in this video. So for now, let me show you briefly how an object figure looks like in JavaScript. Let's declare a variable object1. Object1 is equal to. So this is an object. An object normally has a key and a value. So inside here is where we are going to have keys and values. So we can have the first item as name, parameter. The first property is name. Could be a string, Tony Dennis. And then we could have its edge. The edge would be edge could be 20. Notice the syntax. Then we could have, let's say, coding skills. Pro. That's just a sample object. So in this object we have properties which are name. Inside this object1 we have properties which are name, age, and coding skills. Those are properties. Those are the property keys, and the property values that are inside these objects are Tony Dennis, 20, and pro. Let's try to log out this object and see what it's going to be console logged from our browser. We are going to use the browser for the console for this demo. Let's see, log object1. We are going to log this same object. And then save. So let's watch what is rendered on the browser. You can see this is the object. You can see it's just the way we have just declared it. If we log the object, it's just going to appear as it is. Now, at times you could want to, let's say, play with it, or maybe as you are performing important functions, you would like to, let's say, echo out the property names like this age, coding skills, and name without having to display these other property values like age 20. You just want to echo out the key. And by the way, before I go to that, there's a way you could have objects with which are more complex, like they have a lot of things inside. Like you could have this one as object1. The first object would have another object inside. Let's say we have this another object. Let's say this one could be item1. So item1, okay, and then you could have item2 with the same items, Control C, or maybe different items. This item2, instead name, let's say Joy, age 50. Let's say coding skills, let's say beginner. we could have multiple objects, and inside even this object, this item, we could have another object inside this object of the object, yeah, such that you could have, let's say, name. You could do objects inside objects and inside other objects inside other objects. They could be as complex as you want. You have no limitations to how much you can do. As you can see, we have one main object whose name is object 1, and inside that object we have another object for item 1 and another object for item 2. So it is we have one big object with 2 other smaller objects inside. So, and if you log it, still it's going to work out. It's just going to tell you the items that are inside, as just we had logged from the other. You can see if we try to log, it is giving us item 1, like the 2 objects that are inside the big object. So you have no limitation to what you can do with objects and how complex they can be. But let's not just go into that. Let's go back and try. Now I want us to use a simpler example so that you can grab it very well. I like using straightforward examples so that even in the implementation you not get confused, as I see other tutorials where people try to give examples and tutorials using very complex examples. I prefer to be simple so that you can understand the knowledge from the ground up. So let's say in this object you want to let's say return all the property keys, like this property keys, name, age, and coding skills. You want to return the keys instead of the values. You don't want the values, you just want to return the keys. How do you think you would do that? Now this is how you would do it. You would just call object. You just call object. There's a key property key name that is called get on property names, and this is how we'll do it. Let's say object. Let's say object 1 keys would be object which is now object 1, this one, dot get on property names, dot get on property names. Sorry, I don't know what just happened. Oh, I created another file which is not as cool. Don't want that. So I just want to be simple. So objects get object 1 dot get on property names. Property, sorry, names. Okay, yeah, that would be it. Sorry, not object 1. Would need to do object, not object 1. Object is a keyword, object. And then inside here we would call now object 1, since it is the objects from which you want to obtain its keys. Copy, and then paste there. Okay, so this object, this item here, this variable, let's declare it as variable. So this variable here we have defined, called object 1 keys, would return the property names of object 1. Let's see what will be logged if you try to log out this object. Let's copy and paste. What would be logged? Let's see from our console. So you can see we are it is logging out an array which consists of the property names, name, age, and coding skills. That is what we have for this name, age, coding skills. At times you would want not to return an object that returns the property keys, but rather you would want, an item or a variable that will return the property values. Let's say instead of returning name, it will return Tony Dennis, it will return 20, and it will return pro. How would you go about that? Yeah, so that is very simple. So, and the way you would just do it, you would use something called a key called object.values instead of object.get property names. Would use object.values. Let's say object1 keys, object1 now values. So the way you do that, let's just do a caps here. So object.values instead. Values. Yeah. So we want to log this one and see if it is going to return as we expect. See. Save and see from our console if it is going to give us as the things we expect. So exactly, it is giving us an array which has a length of 3, and its values inside are Tony Dennis, 20, and pro. Now this time around, instead of returning name, age, and coding skills, it is returning the values of those keys, which is Tony Dennis, 20, and pro this time around. So okay. So there are so many workouts and keys that an object has. Would have object.values, would have object.get property names, would have many of them. Let's just try to look at a number of them. Let's say we have two objects, object1, Control C. Let's make another object2. Sorry, let's copy this object1 so that we can make another object here. We copy it here, then we call it object2, and let's say the name is still Tony Dennis, age let's say it's 20 still, or maybe 25, and then coding skills, let's say still pro. And then we are going to add another property, which is let's say likes. Likes would be, let's say likes, the value for that would be basketball, or maybe football. And then let's say we have still another property, which is let's say gender, and that will, let's say the value is male. Okay. Now, as you can see here, we have two objects which are they are kind of similar, but this one has additional objects, and also the values slightly differ from the values that are inside this object. Let's say we wanted to make to update this object, to update object1 with the values in object2, so that we still have retain our name, when it comes to age, we are going to, let's say, update the age to 25. And then when it comes to coding skills, maybe it remains the way it is. And then when it comes, since this one has no other parameters, we add whatever is not inside to what is inside this array. Yeah, let's try to add something. Or we could also have, let's say this one also has some values, some properties. Let's say most likely, let's say drunk. Okay, so you can see that this one has some properties that are not inside here, and this one has properties that are not inside here, and there are some properties that are inside here and they are inside here, which are colliding in values, where others are not. So we could want to update or maybe formulate another variable, or that will have another object, or maybe form another object which will take this and update it, or maybe return an object which has all the values inside here, but now they are going to be updated to take the values that are inside here, and those that are not present here are going to be added here. Okay, so we'll have one big item that is up to date. Yeah, so how would we do that? So we would use a key called object.assign. Yeah. So objects one, let's say objects, let's just do object values. Let's just call it object values, and then instead of object.values, we are just going to objects.assign to update it, to update this with those items that are inside here. So objects.assign. Now inside here, instead of having object 1, we are going to have 2 objects, of which the first one would be the first, and the second one would be the second, as this object 1, object 2. Object 1, which is this, and then a comma, and then would have object 2. Let's see what this one would do. Let's see what this one would return. Let's just try to log it out, and let's see what this object will entail. Is it going to have these values, or combination, or how is it going to fix this mess? We save and check our console. So here is our new objects. Let's just clear the console and relearn. So here is now the new returned objects. As you can see, it has age 25. Age 25. Let's just minimize this so we can see the difference. So we have object 1. So age here is going to be, the age returned is 25. So of which it is taking the second age. Of course, it is updating the first one from 20 to 25. Coding skills pro, since this one is not, even when it is updated, it's not changing, the value is the same. Okay. Then gender, male. Gender is male. Of course, gender is not in the first object. So since it is not in the first object, what the function or the method does is that it takes what is not here and adds. If it is not there, it adds. That is the rule. If it is not there, it adds. If it is there but has a differing value, it updates it. Okay. Yeah. So then likes, football likes here are there, but they are not here, so the same way it's going to add here. Then gender, of course, you said, and then the name is Tony Dennis, doesn't change. But then we had one value which was here but was not here. Is it touched? Most likely it's not here. Most likely it's not in our this value, property value called property key called most likely is not in our second object. So I don't know if it is getting updated. Let's check. So is it here? Most likely, yeah, it is there. It is not touched. Since this object does, this object, the second object is not meddling with the objects in the first item if it is not in the second item. Okay, so I know it sounds confusing, but with a little practice with this, it's going to get you somewhere. So let's try to do something else more interesting. Okay, now we go to something else. Let's just do with one object, that. So let's say we wanted to directly update some specific property inside this object without having to compare two objects or doing all that stuff. Let's say you wanted to update, let's say, coding skills from pro to something else. How would we do that without interfering with these other things? Must we introduce two objects, other objects? No. So this is how we would do it. First, we would define. We would just check. We would just take this object one. Let's do away with this for now. Object one, and then we will do object one. This is how we access this item here, this parameter, property, sorry. So if we try to log object1.coding skills, by the way, it is going to give us pro. Or you want us to try that? You can just do it here. Let's just try to log that. So let's see. You see, it is giving us the it is giving us that. Let's reload again and see. Yeah, it is giving us pro. Yeah, that is how we access objects inside. If we wanted to access the value of coding skills inside object one, we'll just do object1.coding skills. If we wanted to access most likely, then we'll do object1.most likely. So this is pretty simple, so I'll not take much time in that. So it's giving us drunk. Yeah, of course, that is the value that is inside this property. Now I want to update that property. I want to update this property, let's say most likely, alone without interfering with these other properties. How would I do that? I would just do this new object, let's say const, or maybe a variable, equal to that object1.most likely, because it's the one we want to update. Or maybe let's not just define any objects. Let's do object1.most likely. We equate it to some, instead of drunk, let's say sober. Let's try to log now this value object1. Let's see what is contained in object1. Okay, I mean most likely inside object1, most likely. Let's try to log this one and see if it's going to have our new value. We log it out, we save and see. Yeah, it is telling us the value is sober. So it has changed from drunk to sober. Okay, So we can update one. Not only that, we can update multiple of them as much as we want using this same item here. So there are many objects. I just wanted to introduce you to these objects and how we can operate with them. I want now to let us jump to arrays. Let's comment out all this since we are not using it for now, and try to define an array. And by the way, arrays are a group of items or elements which are put together. The figure of arrays is as follows. Let's say variable array1. Let's define array1, and this is how we define arrays. Arrays, instead of having this as we did in objects, we would have this. Okay, it's a kind of bracket. We would have that is an array. Now we have already defined an empty array, an array which has nothing. So if we try to log that array, it is going to give us an empty item. Okay, yeah, you see it is giving us an array which has nothing inside. Okay, now let's try to do something more interesting with this array. Let's try to add items inside the array. How do we do that? Let's just start by the simplest way we can do that. We can add a few items. Let's say a dog. You can just add independent items. A dog, cat, donkey, elephant, zebra, so those are items that are inside this array. If we try to log this array out, we log it out. Okay, oh sorry, these are supposed to be strings. That is why we get the error. So make sure. So we could also do the same we had done if we had defined these items, but since we want them to be strings, let's just work with them as strings. So let's try to log it out again and see if it's going to give us. Let's try to reload. Yeah, so that is the object we are that is the array we are returning. It is basically just what we have done. That is the syntax we give for arrays. They are a group of items it's a group of items which are put together. Okay, now let's try to do something interesting with this array. For example, I want us to add something else inside this array using code now. Okay, so how would we do that? This is how we will do it. There's a keyword that we use in arrays. That is, there are multiple ways we can do that. Let's say, but this time around we are going to use push. Okay, so let's say array1. Let's add something else inside the array. Array1 dot push, and then the item we want to push. Let's say we want to push a leopard. How would we get the output now? Save. So of course you can see now our array has our array that has recently been logged out has these items, which are dog, cat, donkey, elephant, zebra, and leopard, the one that we have just added. the leopard is here. Okay, that is an interesting way of adding items inside the array. We would also want, let's say, to check how many items are inside this array. How would we do that? And this is basically how we do it. We'll just do array1, array1, which is this dot length. So if we try to let's say object items inside, let's give a variable or maybe a constant. Length is equal to maybe le for length. Array1.length. This will return the number of items inside our array. So let's do console log le. So, oops, sorry. That is I would use dot length, would not add the braces because that is not a function. So sorry guys, again, I had not noticed with that error. So that is how we do it. So it is returning the length of the array, which is 6. It has 6 elements. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the one we've just added, which is 6. Okay, so that is how we would check the number of items inside the array. We would want also to do something else that is a bit more engaging with the array. Let's say we want to do something with each item. For example, we would want to take each and every item and put it in some other array. Okay, or before we even get to that, let's say we wanted to get the array that is in the third position. Let's say we want to get a donkey. I had written badly. Let's say we want to get the element item that is number 3 from the first item. How would we get that? How do we return the value that is in this position? This is how we would do it. So array that is in position 3, third. So I define it as third. That item would be array1. Now instead of dot length, we would just use these braces and put the position. It's position 0, 1, 2. Of course, you will notice that we do not start counting from 1, 1, 2, 3. We start from 0, 1, 2. So we want to get the item that is in that position 2, 0, 1, 2. So we'll put 2 inside here, and then we would log this. Save. What would we get? We would get the donkey, of course, here, because it's in the third position. Of course, it is in the third position. Okay, that is what will be logged outside here, since we have just called. Let's say we wanted to get the one that is in the position 0, 1, 2, the position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So normally how we would do it, we would log the one that is in position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4. So that is in the 4th position. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. What would we get? Oh, 4th. of course, that is how we'll do it. And then save. Let's see. Clear the console and reload. So the one that is in that position is zebra, as it is. Okay, so that is how we would get specific items in that array. Let's now introduce loops inside from inside this item. Let's say we could do something interesting with the array. We can loop through each and every one of them, doing whatever we want. Let's say, for example, we want to take each and every one of these items, loop through them as from the one from number the first one to, let's say, the third one, 1, 2, 3. And then pick each and every one of them, the first 3, and add them to some other array. Okay, how would we do that? So what we'll do about that, let's clear this one first. So since we don't need it for now, how we would do that is that we would do a loop which we would use for each loop. Do for each array 1. This is array 1. Yeah. So if your if your code editor has that autocomplete, then you do it very fast. But basically what we are doing, we are picking this array and looping array 1. We are picking the array and telling JavaScript to loop through each and every item inside the array. Now this element is a variable, something we have declared inside. For each loop, by the way, takes in a function, and that function, inside a function, you can declare whatever the elements you want inside, and then it can help you while you are iterating through each and every item. Let's define another array here, which we would want to add the first item to the third item. Let's say a variable array 2 equal to an empty array, since we are the ones who are going to add items. So we want to loop through the first array and then add the items we get from the first item to the third item inside this second array. So we loop through, and this is how we do it for each element. So we take the element. So as I've told you, for each loop takes in a function. So you can see that is an arrow function. So and then we can perform our logic inside here. So for each array, okay, before we do that, let's try to do like we want to pick all the items and fix them in this second array. For each element, let's pick that element and add it to array 2. That what it's going to do is that it is going to loop through all these items and picking every one of them from the first one to the last one, adding it to this array. So we do elements, array 2, Control C, dot push whatever I want to push. We want to push the element. So element is the instant object that is currently in position. For example, when it is looping through dog, the element at that time would be dog. When it has jumped to cat, the element at that time would be cat, and the way it would continue that way until the end. So we would pick each and every item while pushing it to that array. Let's now try to log out the log this array and see what will be contained inside. So we log that array 2. Let's see what we will get. So as you can see, it has been logged here. It has picked each and every item of array 1, one of them inside this array, and now we have logged in the new array which has all the elements of array 1. Let's do something again more interesting with it. We want to now pick the first two. We want to pick object 1 to object item 1, element 1 to element 3 of this array, and then put them into this. We don't want to put everything inside this array in array 2. We just want to pick items from 0 to number 2, 0, 1, 2, and then leave out the rest. How would we do that? Then here is where we will want to use the for loop. Yeah. So on the for loop, the way we normally do it, this is how we do it. For of course, that one would give us the item. So let's just do I. For I is equal to 0, since we want to take from number 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 2. So we want to take up to the third item, and we said we are counting from 0. So we do 0, 1, 2. We want to pick these 3 items. So for I is equal to 0, I is less than not array.length this time, but array is length I is less than 3, since we want to take up to the third item, and then we increment I so we can move to the next element. We would want to do away with this since we are not using it, so that we can have a cleaner code. And then we would want to remove this one also, we are not using it. So we want to get through, to loop through array 1 so that we can fetch number 1 to number 3. So we are using the for loop to get through 0 to 3. And each and every one, the way we would do it, would just do array 1. So we want to push array 2 dot push and then we want to push the item, and then here we would include array 1. Get array 1 since it's the one that contains the values we want to push into array 2, and here we would pick I. We would use I so that it would be the one which will help us not to exceed this limit that we have set, since it's the one we have set to be less than 3. It is 0, 1, 2, so it should be less than 3. Okay. So after that, we would want now to console log array 2. Let's see what of it. Okay, so we can see now it is returning an array which has 3 elements. It has looped through this array, and then it has picked the first 3 elements of the array, and yeah, it has given us whatever the items. So it has returned a new array with 3 items. It has ignored all the rest and returned only the first items. Oh, sorry, I did 1 instead of I. Sorry for that. So save. So it's going to return an array which has the first items: dog, cat, and donkey. Okay. I would want us to convert an object into an array. How do we convert this object? To become an array. And the way we would do that is that we would use, let's say we want to convert this to become an array. Let's do away with this since we are done with it for now. Or maybe a variable to array, we call it to array. So to array, so this is how we do it. Object dot entries, and then here we would pass our object, which is object 1. And then we would want to log this new item. And save and see what we've got. So we would get an item of arrays. We would get one array which has multiple arrays inside. So we have managed to convert our object into an array. So you can see it is one array, but inside the array it has other small arrays. Log it so that you can see the difference. We log object 1. Let's try to log both of them and see. Log object 1. So you can see the first one is this, we are logging the array, the new array, and then the second one is the object, the plain object that we had, and this is an array. So with that, guys, that is it for this video tutorial. If you liked it, please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like. Okay, thank you. And if you have any suggestion, you can comment on the section below this video. Thank you.